Thunder cracked like a whip over the sleepy suburban street, the air heavy with the promise of rain. A black SUV screeched to a halt in front of our modest house, its tinted windows gleaming under a flickering streetlight. No license plates. My grip tightened on the coffee mug in my hand, the warmth doing little to calm the chill creeping up my spine. I stood on the porch, watching as two men in tactical vests stepped out, their boots hitting the pavement with predatory intent. They weren't here to talk. They were here to hunt. My daughter, Sophie, knelt in the driveway, her small hands clutching a piece of purple chalk. At 8 years old, she was a fighter, her head wrapped in a green scarf to hide the scars from months of chemotherapy. She was sketching a phoenix, its fiery wings spreading across the concretia, symbol of her resilience against the cancer that had tried to claim her. Her soft hum, a rare melody after so much pain, filled the air moments ago. Now, it was silenced by the SUV's arrival. The men zeroed in on Sophie, ignoring me. The taller one, clutching a clipboard, barked, "You're defacing shared property." HOA Regulation 10.2, Vandalism. His voice was sharp, rehearsed, but it carried a hollow edge, like he was playing a role he didn't fully understand. Sophie looked up, confused. "This is our driveway," she said, her voice small but steady. "It's my phoenix." The second man, stocky with a shaved head and a smirk that twisted my gut, leaned closer. "Pretty bold for a kid with a head like a light bulb," he sneered. "What's under that scarf?" "A bowling ball." His laugh was a jagged blade, cutting through the morning. Sophie's hand froze. The chalk slipped, rolling into the grass. Her eyes, wide and searching, met mine, and I saw not just fear, but a flicker of shame for something she couldn't control, something these monsters had no right to mock. My mug hit the porch with a dull crack, coffee spilling across the wood. I stepped forward, rage boiling over. "Get off my property. Now." They turned to me, slow and deliberate, like I was an annoyance they could swat away. The tall one tapped his Badhea cheap, plastic thing straight out of costume bin. "You the homeowner? You're liable for this violation. Non-compliance means fines or referral to the board." "There's no board." I snapped, my fists clenching until my knuckles ached. "We don't have an HOA. You're fake. Leave." The stocky one chuckled, a low, mocking sound. "We're real, buddy. And you'd better watch your tone with officers." He glanced at Sophie, her scarf slipping slightly to reveal the faint surgical scars on her scalp. "Bet she's radioactive," he said, grinning. "Explains the glow." That was the moment everything shifted. Sophie flinched, her hands scrambling to fix her scarf, as if she could hide from their cruelty. My heart pounded, fury drowning out reason. I opened my mouth to scream, to charge, but a low creak stopped me cold. The screen doors swung open, and a heavy step landed on the porch. I didn't need to look. I knew that sound. My father, Jim Harlan, stepped into the storm shadow, his presence like a gathering thunderhead. At 67, he was weathered but unyielding, his flannel shirt tucked into faded jeans, his boots scuffed from years of walking dangerous roads. He held a glass of iced tea, condensation dripping onto the wood, but his other hand rested on his belt, where a ring of keys jangled softly. He didn't speak at first. His eyes, sharp as flint, scanned the scene. Sophie, trembling but defiant. The two men, smug and clueless. Me, caught between shock and rage. Then, in a voice low and steady, like the rumble before a quake, he said, "You've got 3 seconds to apologize to my granddaughter, or I'll show you what happens to men who mock what they don't understand." The men froze, caught off guard. The tall one laughed nervously, gripping his clipboard. "What's that mean, Grandpa? You gonna sue us?" Jim stepped forward. "One." The stocky one smirked, but his eyes betrayed unease. "Touch us, and you're done. We're HOA enforcement. You don't want this fight." 2. The tall one straightened, tried to reassert control. "This is official business. Back off, or you'll regret it." Jim's lips twitched, not a smile, but something feral. 3. What happened next was a blur of precision and power. Jim moved like a storm breaking, crossing the distance in a heartbeat. He grabbed the stocky man's wrist as it reached towards Sophie, twisting it with a sickening pop that echoed across the driveway. Using the man's momentum, Jim drove his face into the SUV's hood, the metal denting with a thud. The guy collapsed, screaming, clutching his broken arm. The tall one fumbled for a taser, but Jim was already there, inside his reach. A sharp elbow knocked the taser away, followed by a knee to the gut that doubled the man over. Jim grabbed his collar and slammed him against the SUV's door, the impact shaking the vehicle. The man gasped, swung a weak punch, but Jim caught his arm, twisted it, and sent him face first into the pavement beside his partner. Sophie, curled against the porch steps, watched with wide eyes, not fear, but awe. Her grandpa wasn't just the man who told her stories of his days as a U.S. Marshal. He was the story, alive and unstoppable. I stood frozen, heart racing, unable to process the speed, the force of what I'd just seen. Jim stepped back, breathing steady, his eyes fixed on the groaning men. "You okay, kiddo?" he asked, turning to Sophie, his voice softening. She nodded, clutching her scarf. "I didn't cry," she whispered. "I know," he said, kneeling beside her. He slipped off his flannel and draped it over her shoulders. "You're tougher than they'll ever be." I found my voice. "Dad, you all right?" He glanced at me, nodded, then stood. "Call the police. These idiots aren't MOVYing." I dialed 911, hands trembling, and explained as calmly as I could. The operator asked if the suspects were armed. "Not anymore," I said, eyeing the taser in the grass. The neighborhood stirred. Mrs. Larson across the street stepped onto her porch, phone in hand. The Mendozes next door emerged, their daughter filming. By the time 2 police cruisers arrived, lights flashing, sirens off the street buzzed with witnesses, their cameras capturing every angle. Officer Daniels, a cop I'd seen at town halls, surveyed the scene and looked at Jim, now back on the porch with his iced tea. "You didn't kill them, right?" he asked, half smirking. "Not worth the effort," Jim replied, his tone flat. "We gave our statements." Sophie was checked by a paramedic, given a juice box to steady her. The men later identified as Tra V.Y.S. Boone and Ethan Cole were loaded into an ambulance, one with a dislocated shoulder, the other with cracked ribs. They claimed they were security contractors, but their gear told the truth. Fake badges, forged HOA citations, and a laptop in an SUV with a list of targets across 2 states. "This is big," Daniel said, sealing the SUV for EVY Denke. "Your dad just cracked open a scam ring." I glanced at Jim, who didn't react, just watched Sophie as she returned to her Phoenix, chalk in hand. "He's done it before," I muttered. The investigation moved fast. Boone and Cole were part of a racket called Neighborhood Compliance Solutions, a fake LLC tied to a PO. Box in Nevada. They'd hit 4 neighborhoods in 6 weeks, extorting thousands from retirees and single parents with threats of fines and seizures. Their playbook was fear until they met Jim Harlan. By noon, a neighbor's VY of the takedown hit social media, exploding with 80,000 VYUs in hours. Jim's voice, "You've got 3 seconds," became a meme, layered over dramatic music. A news van arrived by 2 p.m., followed by another. Reporters narrated this suburban showdown from the sidewalk. I kept Sophie inside, away from the chaos, but Jim stayed on the porch, unbothered, watching like a hawk. He refused inter-VYUs, dismissing reporters with one line, "They mocked the wrong kid." End of story. That night, after the vans left, I sat with Jim under the porch light. Sophie was asleep, clutching a stuffed phoenix she hadn't touched since her diagnosis. "Will they pay for this?" I asked. Jim stared at the driveway, where Sophie's phoenix glowed under the moonlight. "They already are," he said. "Every time they look in the mirror, they'll see a 67-year-old man who broke them in front of a little girl stronger than they'll ever be. That's a scar that doesn't fade." The story went viral. By morning, national outlets swarmed our lawn. The sheriff's office issued a statement. "We've uncovered a fraud scheme targeting families with fake HOA violations. 2 suspects are in custody. More arrests are likely. 3 more VY Tims came forward, including a widower who'd paid Dula $4,000 to avoid EVY time. The scam scope was massive, and Jim had exposed it with his fists. Social media crowned him a hero. A veterans group shared the VY Deo, calling him the Marshal who never quit. Cancer Sir VY Vor pages posted Sophie's phoenix, a symbol of defiance. Someone made T-shirts with her phoenix and guarded by Grandpa. Jim didn't care. He wasn't in it for glory. A week later, a private investigator uncovered a third conspirator, Lydia Kane, a scout who photographed targets, including Sophie, days before the confrontation. She was arrested in a diner, her phone filled with images of our driveway. Jim just nodded when I told him. Predators always watch first, he said. They didn't see me coming. The legal hammer fell hard. Boone, Cole, and Kane faced federal charges: racketeering, extortion, impersonation. The jury took 40 minutes to con VYCT. Each got 7 years, no parole. The judge cited their cruelty to a child as a factor, and the neighbor's VY Deo 10 seconds of Jim's takedown sealed their fate. The prosecutor called it a CIVY Lien masterclass. The county launched Operation Safe Badge, a hotline and app to verify officials, funded partly by donations inspired by Jim. A local paper called it the Harlan Effect. At home, Sophie healed. She drew more phoenixes, bolder each time. One morning, she sketched a massive phoenix with JH on its wings, flames curling around it. Neighbors stopped to admire, and someone sealed it in resin, bolting it to the driveway with a plaque, in honor of courage when justice flew. Months later, Sophie's hair began to grow, faint but fierce, like her. One night, on the porch, she asked Jim, "Were you scared on your martial missions?" "Every time," he said, his voice soft. "Fear keeps you alive, but you don't let it stop you." "You didn't stop for me," she said, squeezing his hand. "Never will," he replied. A security firm offered Jim a consulting job. He declined, but accepted a gift for Sophie, a jacket with a phoenix and protected by Grandpa. She wore it everywhere, her smile brighter than ever. The headlines faded, but the driveway endured. Sophie's phoenix, sealed forever, became a landmark. Kids took selfies with it. Neighbors shared the story. And when people asked what it meant, we'd smile and say, "That's the day 2 fools mocked the wrong girl and learned her grandpa used to hunt monsters." If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this VY Deo with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next VY Deo.